Hi, so this is part 6 of our character walk cycle animation, and what we're going to be doing in this animation is tweening. So tweening is when you add in between frames to your animation to give it more flow and to make it a little easier to see. It means things don't necessarily go by super quick. So you have to look really carefully to kind of see the difference. This is where we left off in the full background demo, and you can see he's walking across really quick. It almost seems like vibrational in parts because it's just there's not enough frames to fill the time. Typically in an animation, you need at least 12 frames per second to make something appear more smooth and lifelike. That can go all the way up to 24 frames a second for very fast movements. So with this one, I think I'm at about 15 frames a second. And I actually slowed down the time a little bit more because I wanted the character to move a little bit slower, to kind of seem like they're meandering through this field more. So just notice how this one it's not just slower in quality, but it's also smoother in quality. And in animation studios, there is literally a job called tweeners. They're the people in 2D animation that do the in-between frames. So the key framers are really the most skilled. They spend a lot of time on those early frames, and then it goes down to in-betweeners and tweeners. So let's get started. So I've left off right from my last document. So where I have, the character walking across the frames. So onion skinning is really important when you get to the tweening stage, because if you see too many things at once, it can get kind of complicated. But sometimes when we have onion skinning on this much, it gives us the overall impact of a movement, gives us the whole picture to make sure things are kind of headed in the right direction. But once we get into tweening, I might only want to see the before and after frame. So just two. So I have really reduced the amount I'm seeing in terms of onion skin. You probably want onion skinning at around, maybe 50, 60%. And if it's helpful, you can turn off the background now as well. That might make it a lot easier to do this. Now, so we're not spending a lot of time with different labeling of all our layers. We're not going to focus on that. Just know that the images that you currently have it says inserted image. So what you're going to do is create a new layer between each of those images and draw the in between. I actually have a third layer selected, so I'm going to go even down to just one. So the one means I can see the frame before and the frame after, one on each side. And I'm going to stay on my syrup brush. I want to draw this exact same way. And I'm basically just going in between what those two frames are doing. So I'm in between the horn. On this one, this is the arm moving over. So sometimes I tend to do the things that are overlapping, like the horn, and then I'll do the shapes that are going behind. This is the foot just slightly moving. And then immediately in your history, you will see your previous colors. You can also, if you have those selected, you can make a little color palette here. So I really just need the black, the green, and the pink. And immediately I'm just going to fill this. This is not typically how you would do tweening. You would usually do tweening before you do any sort of color work, but this is just the easiest way to show you for a shorter style animation. All right, so I have a layer number sandwiched between two inserted images. Now I'm just going to move over. It's going to be a pattern. So now I'm going to go over to black. So I want to make sure, kind of looking at where this horn is, that the next one is drawn somewhere directly in the middle. The only time tweening really changes is if you have a significant, I'm doing the between the foreheads. Now I'm doing the in-between for the mouths. The only time tweening really gets a little bit more difficult is if you have a really quick arm bend or a leg bend. But in general, I'm just trying to find somewhere in between what I already have. So I'm looking at the stomachs. This foot's not moving too much. If something doesn't move a lot, that one's really stays in place. then I'm just gonna leave it. And you'll notice I'm spending a lot less time on the tweens. It doesn't mean go crazy fast. It just means that as long as they're clean and you're getting things in between the frames, you don't really need to take as much time with the tweening. All right, now it should be a little easier because you're going to start seeing more of the full character. I'm really following a pattern. I'm doing the horn first, then the eye, and now I'm moving over the bigger shapes behind it because I have to stop and hop over. The arm is changing angle slightly, so I'm also going to keep that in mind. So it's just starting to shift up like a little bit. All right, tummy line. Now this leg is still kind of staying in place. Oh, this is the up frame. So I'm going to just go back and forth between these two. Okay, these two frames for a second. This is usually this is a bigger transition. So this leg is coming over here. So I really need to keep in mind that's a good example of when something's kind of a quick move. So I actually need to be moving this one off the ground. So notice how this one's a little trickier. I am spending my time making sure that one's right. All right, and that's my previous leg, so that's going to be actually overlapped. And I'm just going to do one more, and then we'll kind of take a look at it. All right, again, sandwiching between the insert images. All right, same pattern. I'm going to do the more detailed parts first. So horn, eye. Get the mouth in. It's moving down a little bit and to the right. This is the same arm. So again, trying to make it both move to the right, but also slowly move down. All right, the stomach line going right in the middle. And then this leg isn't doing too much different other than it's just changing direction a little bit more. Let me just make sure. I always kind of go back and forth for a second just to get a sense. Okay, so this leg has to go over here. All right. Whoops. Let me just finish filling this last frame. All right, and now let's just scrub through it. So you can see, let me turn off onion skinning for a second. Yeah, you can see, do you see how much slower and smoother it is now? Versus this is the part I haven't tweened yet. You can see it's not vibrating, but it almost creates this sort of, like where you see like white patches between it because it's not tweened enough yet. So this is really what's going to make animation really easy and give it a really professional kind of high quality to look at. All right, guys, you will do that all the way across your frames. Take